If you want to understand the celebrity culture in the church today, you need to listen to President Eisenhower. The question for this video comes from Sean Quillen on my Facebook page. He asked, "Why do we make idols out of Christian ministers and Christian artists?" That's a great question, and it's one that a lot of people have been asking in recent years as we see one celebrity pastor after another embroiled in scandals and controversies. Rachel Held Evans wrote an article about this for Relevant Magazine not that long ago, and a panel discussed the same question at a recent T4G conference. Most explanations focus on our corrupt hearts and our desire for a visible human leader to follow. But those explanations, while very legitimate, overlook something really important. First of all, celebrity pastors are nothing new. People have always exalted human leaders, going all the way back to the book of Judges. And every generation has had its handful of well-known preachers. What's different today, however, is the number of celebrity pastors. We've created an entire celebrity class within American evangelicalism, and the reason goes way beyond our corruptible hearts. And that brings me to President Eisenhower. In his farewell address to the nation in 1961, Eisenhower warned about the rise of what he called the military-industrial complex. After World War II, for the first time, America had a permanent arms industry that employed millions of people. Eisenhower realized that the arms industry needed wars to keep selling their products. Being a former general, Eisenhower saw the danger. He predicted that the military-industrial complex would push the U.S. to massively grow its military and get into unnecessary wars for economic reasons. And he was right. So what does this have to do with the rise of celebrity pastors? Well, like the military-industrial complex, there is also an evangelical industrial complex that has created a celebrity culture within the church for economic gain. Have you ever wondered why you don't see pastors from small churches on the stages of conferences? Or why most of the best-selling Christian authors tend to be megachurch leaders? The story we want to believe is that the most godly, intelligent, and gifted leaders naturally attract large followings, and that their ideas are so great, their books are naturally the ones that get published and become bestsellers. And so, of course, they would be the ones to speak at the big national conferences. Is that story possible? Yeah. Does it happen? Occasionally. But is it the norm? Sadly, no. Here's the other story, the one that we don't like to tell. Publishers need to sell books, and a lot of them. So they look for authors that already have large audiences. Megachurch pastors are the obvious choice. Sometimes the pastor will write the book, but it's not uncommon for a ghostwriter to be hired by the publisher to turn the pastor's sermon notes into a book that he then just puts his name on. The publisher will then promote the pastor and his book at sponsored ministry conferences. The hope is that between the pastor's own megachurch audience and the publisher's conferences, the book will become a bestseller and make a lot of money for the publisher. If that doesn't work, sometimes elaborate schemes are used to manipulate the sales of the book and literally buy it onto the bestsellers list. Yeah, it's unethical, and some pastors have been caught and shamed for doing it, but it's sadly common among church leaders today. In order to keep this $7 billion business model going, the evangelical industrial complex has had to create more and more celebrity pastors. So why are there now so many celebrity pastors? Because they generate a lot of revenue for the evangelical industrial complex. And why do these pastors fall with such regularity? Because the EIC uses a business standard rather than a biblical standard when deciding which leaders to promote. American evangelicalism is no longer a meritocracy where a leader's gifts, character, or wisdom result in greater influence. Instead, it's an aristocracy where simply having a large platform now entitles you to even more influence, even if you completely lack the character or wisdom to handle it. So what are we supposed to do about the EIC? Well, here's 3 suggestions. First, rethink the voices that you listen to. Just because a book or a leader is popular, you should never assume that he or she is mature, godly, or even orthodox. Secondly, reward those publishers, radio programs, conferences, or podcasts that clearly care more about sanctity than celebrity. Use your money to support voices that may not be popular, but which need to be heard by the church and by the culture. Finally, return some of the authority that you've granted to the evangelical industrial complex to your local church. Real ministry happens in the context of relationships. Books and conferences and podcasts are great, but we still need incarnate men and women to function in our communities as our spiritual mothers and fathers. So Sean, thanks for the great question. You're going to get a free 1-year subscription to my email devotional, With God Daily. If you've got a question that you'd like me to address in a future video, be sure to like my Facebook page and sign up for my free newsletter at skijitani.com. Share your comments below. Let me know, what do you think about the rise of celebrity pastors and the evangelical industrial complex? Thanks for watching.